Okay, welcome to the second Formulas and Functions participation project. I have already opened up the housing.xlsx file that you should have gotten from your instructor's webpage under the assignment section. Hopefully you've already downloaded and extracted it. I have it open right now to the home sheet. However, the first formula that we're going to start working with today is on the total value sheet. So heading over to that one, we see that we want to get the total values for houses in 1970 and for this particular state. So we're going to need to use what's called a 3D formula or 3D function, and we're going to basically grab information from several different sheets and put them into the one we have right now. So first thing we do is type equals, because that tells Excel that we're making a formula or function. And we're going to go to the home sheet first. We're going to find Alabama and the year 1970. And we're going to grab that cell right there. Then we're going to hit the asterisk, which is multiplying by the home values. So what we have up here is the number of homes in Alabama in 1970, and this will give us how much each one of those is worth, which is $12,200. So just make sure that when you're doing a 3D formula like this, you get information for example, in this case, the same state and year, but make sure that it matches up exactly. And then you just hit enter and it'll take you back. So to get to another sheet, you just click on these sheets down here, the tabs, when you're making a three-dimensional formula like that. And if it didn't autofill for you, go ahead and do that. I'm going to also autofill across all the way over to column G and then all the way down until I hit Wyoming, which is in row 54. And that's it for this particular step. The next step we're going to do is we're going to use an if statement. So an if statement and other conditions actually test to see whether a particular expression that you will set is true or false. And they can do that for individual cells as it processes uh, down a column, for example, like we're going to be working with today. So we want to see if the value for 2010 is in the top 10 states. So the way we're going to do that, rather than going through and figuring that out for each of these manually, is create an if statement using the function button up here. So you're going to click on this cell, which is I4. So it's right below that 2010 top 10 state header. And you're going to head over to the function button right here. And in the brief description right here, you're just going to type the word if. You're going to hit enter. Double click on the first one right here that you should be seeing. It's just if. And the logical test that we're going to do is we want to see if the corresponding cell in G, that would be the one in the same row as where we're going to evaluate these, is greater than or equal to, and then you're going to want to head to the instructions and copy this number right here, or make sure that you type it in exactly as it is in there. So that'll be 3,585,584. So I'm just going to paste that in right there. And then I'm going to hit this white button right here so that it takes me back to the pop-up. And if this is true for the particular cell that I'm evaluating, I want the function to display the word yes. So I'm going to put yes right here in the second entry. And then if the cell that we're evaluating is less than 3,585,584, we're going to have the formula display no. And that's what you should get after you click OK. All right, for part B of step 4, we're going to be using what's called an OR statement. And what OR statements will do, as I'll show you over here in the function button, do not enter this, just follow along because I'm just showing you what these statements can look like. So as you can see in the pop-up right here, I can add a whole bunch of different conditions to test for, and what this will do is it'll evaluate each one of them. If at least one of these statements is true, then the entire OR statement is true. If all of the conditions, these expressions that we're testing for, if all of those are false, and only if all of them are false, the entire thing is false. So what we're going to do is we're going to type what's in the expression in your instructions right here, which is if. So we're going to have one big if statement that surrounds this OR statement. And we're going to see if this OR statement is true. So I'm going to type in OR. And then I'm just clicking on the uh, autofill and the suggestion right there. So we're going to get cell C4 first. And we want to see if that's greater than or equal to this first number, which is 1759692. So what that's testing is the number of houses or number of homes in Alabama in 1970 in the top 10 for all the states for this particular year, this particular state. And then we're going to get D4, and we're going to basically be checking the same thing across each one of these years over all the way to G. So this is the cutoff for the top 10 states for 1980. So that's 2043291. And just make sure that you enter everything correctly, or just copy and paste from the instructions to make sure that you get everything correct. You don't want to copy and paste the entire formula necessarily because sometimes it won't copy properly, and then you'll be really frustrated on an exam or on a homework because you'll keep entering the same thing and it'll give you the wrong result every time. So we're almost done with this one. So we have all these logical tests, and if the OR statement is true, we're going to have the if statement print out yes, and if it's false, we're going to have it print out no. Then we're going to close the parentheses on this OR statement right here, this big long OR statement. we're going to put a comma because this entire thing right here is our expression for the if statement. We're going to put in quotes YES and then another comma right after the quotes. Open those quotes up again for the last false condition result, and then close out this last set of parentheses. And this is really crucial. You need to make sure that you have the same number of parentheses on the right side as you do on the left side, just like in any other math uh, expression that you would have. And then if you just hit enter, it autofills all of these going down from me. If it doesn't for you, just uh, click and drag the autofill green dot in the lower right corner for J4. And that's it for this particular. So number 5 is designed to reinforce how to do if statements and how to use multiple cells within an if statement. So what we want to see is if the value in 2010 is strictly greater than the home value in the year 2000 for that particular state. So for that, we're going to use an if statement. And you can kind of tell from the instructions because it says determine if each state's total 2010 total value of occupied homes was greater than its 2000 total value. And the condition to display, like what we want to display as a result if that expression is true, is increasing. If it's false, we're going to display not increasing. So for this one, we're going to make sure that this cell is selected for I4. We're going to use the function button right there. We're going to double click on if, and the logical test that we're going to do is we're going to see if the 2010 value is greater than and only greater than the 2000 value. And we're going to say if this value is true, increasing. If not, not increasing. And we're going to close that out. And as you can see, these values were all increasing. So the next thing we're going to work on is called a nested if statement. And what that looks like is right here in the instructions in part 6a. So we have this outer if statement. And here's our expression that we're going to test first. So if cell G4 is greater than or equal to 225,000, great. That's true. That statement's true. It's going to return high as the result in that cell that we're going to be putting this function in. If G4 is less than 225,000, it'll move on to the false condition, the false result, which is this next if statement. And inside this if statement, we're testing the same cell right here, G4, to see if it's greater than or equal to 150,000. If that's true, great. We'll put in moderate. If neither of these conditions are true, both are false, we're going to end up with low. So what we're going to do is enter this formula into cell L4 of the home value sheet, which is under the home pricing column right here. So you can do this either up here in the formula bar, or you can actually do the function button, select the if statement, and the logical test that we're going to do is we're going to get cell G4, And we're going to see if that is greater than or equal to 225,000. And if it's true, great. We're going to make the expression show high right there if that's true. If it's false, we're going to make another if statement, and you got to make sure that you put the parentheses in there for this one. So we're going to test the same cell again, which is G4, but this time we're comparing it to 150,000. So we're going to select that cell, G4, and we're going to make sure that it is greater than or equal to 150,000. If not, we're going to display, or if it is greater than or equal to 150,000, we're going to display moderate. If not, we're going to display low. And I'm putting a comma right after the closing quotes in moderate, and then I'm just typing in low, and I'm putting the parentheses to close out this if statement right here, and I'm going to click OK. So for part B of 6, we're going to see if the rank of the particular state in 2010 was in the top third, middle third, or bottom third. So that's going to be a nested if statement because we have multiple conditions that we're testing. So I'm going to use my if function, and I want to see if the value in the 2010 rank, which is right over here in J, is no more than 17. So if it's not more than 17, it's less than or equal to 17. And if that's the case, we're going to display top third. So I'm just going to copy that from the instructions. So if this rank is less than or equal to 17, the result that we're going to display is going to be top third. If it's not, we're going to have another if condition that we're going to test, and we're going to see if it's in the bottom third. So if it's 36 or greater, then it's going to be in the bottom third. So if this value is greater than or equal to 36, we're going to display bottom third in quotes, and then we're going to have a comma. And if neither of those conditions are true, it has to be in the middle third. And then we're going to close out the parentheses on our if statement right here. And we're going to click OK. And that's it for this participation project. The last thing you have to do is the analysis question. So just make sure to put one response in each row and save it.